Hello, hello, and welcome once again to the David Messiah YouTube channel, where our watchwords are to teach and to build back up the kingdom of Zion. And the title of this talk today is Noah's New Month Feast. Noah's New Month Feast. And I speak to you on the third day of the new month. Today is the third day of the season of summer. And as of Saturday past, today is Monday, and Saturday past would have been the first day of the new month. And so, in accordance with Noah's command, actually, I was commanded to offer up a new month feast in remembrance of Noah. And this is not something I'd done before, but we're living in that time in the year 6009, with numerological 9 highly sort of significant. When all that which is hid shall be brought to light. And this is one of those actually fairly simple things that is now again brought to light. And this command of Noah was given to us in the book of Jubilees, chapter 6, verse 28. So it's down here. And I read verse 28, and on this account he, this is Noah, ordained them for himself, as feasts for a memorial forever, and thus are they ordained. And in verse 29, and they placed them on the heavenly tablets. Each had 13 weeks, 13 by 7 is 91 days. From one to another passed their memorial, from the first to the second, first season, which is spring, to the second season, which is summer, and from the second to the third, from summer to autumn, 91 days, and from the third to the fourth, autumn to winter, 91 days. But let me go back, and I mentioned the 91 days specifically for a reason, which I will get to in a minute. Please bear with me. But that to set the frame and the context, let me go back up to the beginning of this passage at verse 23. And on the new month of the first month, and on the new month of the fourth month, and on the new month of the 7th month, and on the new month of the 10th month are the days of remembrance, and the days of the seasons in the 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a testimony forever. How long? Forever. Verse 24. And Noah, well, it's also here that Noah ordained it. And Noah ordained them for himself as feasts for the generations forever, so that they have become thereby a memorial unto him. And here is partly part explanation of why he ordained those feasts. The new month feast, not of every month, certainly not connected with any observation of a crescent moon, because he's given the rule there, 91 days, right? 13 weeks. But let me carry on. But here is why. On the new month, the first month, he was bidden to make for himself an ark. That means that would have been on the first day of some new year. Noah received the instruction to build an ark. Okay, so that was a New Year's Day, he got that instruction. And on that day, the earth became dry. So then, when it was time now to launch that ark, it again was on a New Year's Day that the earth became dry. And he opened the ark and saw the earth. Oh, this was when, at the end of the flood, he opened the ark again on a New Year's Day. And he saw the earth, so that meant they could disembark. The flood had receded. And verse 26, and on the new month of the 4th month, the mouths of the depths of the abyss beneath were closed. So after the flood started, on the 4th month of the rains having come, the mouths of the depths of the abyss beneath were closed. So that meant there was no sort of runoff for the water. And so that meant the water had to come up, and so there was this great flood. And on the new month of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend into them. So normalcy was sort of brought back, starting on a new month day, this one of the 7th month. And verse 27, and on the new month of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So the water had started to recede again, or at least not that it started to recede, but having been receding, he could now see the tops of the mountains. And Noah was glad. Verse 28, and on this account he ordained them for himself as feasts for a memorial forever, and thus are they ordained. 29. And they placed them, these orders, so to say, on the heavenly tablets. Each had 13 weeks. Each had 13 weeks is 91. Each had 91 days. From one to another past the memorial, from the first to the second, from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. Why do I bring this up? Because it is now, well, let me read the text here of this book. I'm reading from my book, Yahweh's Enochian calendar, and the coming of the David Messiah, or on the second coming. In this regard, Israel long ago went astray, as was prophesied, and this instruction has been misconstrued as an instruction to keep new moon feasts, associated now with every sighting of the crescent moon. This is a fundamental error, at odds with Enoch and at odds with this Jubilees. So the whole basis of new month feasts is given. It is not a new moon feast at all. It is a new month feast, and it's every season, every beginning of the season. So it's not every month, it's every first month, every 4th month, every 7th month, and every 10th month. Now let us look for another if we go now to if we go now to the book of Enoch, chapter 82, and I'll start here reading from verses 16. I should not go all the way down to 20, but let's start at 16. All the days of his dominion, whilst he bears rule. This is now, well, let me go back to verse 10. And these are the names of those who lead them. Here the reference is to the seasons. Who watch, that they enter at their times, in their orders, in their seasons, in their months, in their periods of dominion, and in their positions. And now verse 16. And this is now, I've skipped obviously verses 11 to 15, but here there's a reference to one of those seasons, which when we read it, we realize it is referring to the season of spring. So when it says here, all the days of his dominion, the reference is to that spirit of spring. So all the days of the dominion of the spirit of spring, whilst he bears rule, are 91 days, 13 weeks, for the season of spring. That was in Enoch's day. One of the things I had to bring in this book is that it is no longer a 364-day year, as it was in Enoch's day. It is now a 365 and a quarter day a cycle, yearly cycle. So that the season of spring, there's now been an amendment to this 91 days. For the season of spring, it is now 92 days. But that's a separate topic. But let me carry on. And these are the signs of the days which are to be seen on earth in the days of his dominion, spring. Sweat and heat and calms, and all the trees bear fruit, and leaves are produced on all the trees, and the harvest of wheat, and the rose flowers, and all the flowers which come forth in the field. But the trees of the winter season become withered. And these are the names of the leaders which are under them. So it is a sort of a hierarchy. The spring, the season, the spirit of spring doesn't work by himself. So here are some of the other spirits which are involved: Berkael and Zelebzel, and another who is added ahead of 1,000 called Heluyasef, and the days of the dominion of this leader are at an end. Okay. And then verse 18. The next leader after him is Emelech, whom one names the shining sun, and all the days of his light are 91 days. So for the season of summer, it is 91 days. And here we now in year 6009, counting from Adam. So 6009 is not a 4 divisible year. But in any case, the season of summer is always 91 days, whether it is a 4 divisible year or other. In 4 divisible years, the season of autumn is 92 days, also like the season of spring. But that is not every year. That is every 4 divisible year. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit because I'm going to go now to that before I finish this little presentation. And these are the signs of his days on the earth: glowing heat and dryness. And the trees ripen their fruits and produce all their fruits ripe and ready. And the sheep pair and become pregnant. And all the fruits of the earth are gathered in, and everything that is in the fields and the winepress. These things take place in the days of his dominion, meaning the season of summer. These are the names and the orders and the leaders of those heads of thousands: Bidayal, Keel, and Heel, and the name of the head of 1,000, which is added to them, Asrael, and the days of his dominion are at an end. So let me read the text here. These differences among the seasons are corroborated by common experience and provide the empirical reference point by which we know a calendar, quote-unquote, works. The seasons must come in year to year without derangement. Okay. Let me also go back and make the point about the 365 and a quarter. There we go. Look at this book, The Secrets of Enoch, chapter 16, verse 4. And I quote, "And unto the sun there are 365 days and a quarter." So this was a fairly cryptic prophecy from the book The Secrets of Enoch, that there would come a time, contrary to what it was in the days of Enoch, that the average year would no longer be 364 days for the return of the spring equinox, as it was in the days of Enoch, but that it would become 365 days and a quarter, and which is where we are now. And in order to work out how then the calendar, the Enochian calendar, needed to be changed from the 364-day calendar that Enoch outlined in detail to now accommodate 365 days and a quarter, that was a task for spiritual inquiry. And He, the Most High, had given me the gift of Urim and Thummim, and so I was well able to inquire into that matter. And the resolution that He gave me is what I was already just now trying to suggest, that the season of spring, instead of being 91 days, as it was in Enoch's day, has been changed permanently to being 92 days. And the season of autumn has been changed to be 92 days, but only every fourth year. And that in itself is a certain cycle. Every fourth year defines a cycle, and the particular sort of cycle is of those years, or not a cycle, well, it's a sort of a cycle, a series of the 4 divisible years. So year 6008, which was last year, being 4 divisible, 4 goes into 6008 evenly. Last year it was a 366-day year, a year in which in the autumn season there were 92 days. Whereas on other years, or in other years, it remains what it used to be in Enoch's day, which was 91 days. And that's how on average you get 365 days and a quarter. Okay, so I had not prior to this been guided to offer up a remembrance feast on one of those first months of the season, to offer up a feast to Noah. That was not given to me before. What the Most High had guided me to do before was to offer up a remembrance feast to Yeshua on those days. So the new month feast, I was being guided, or had been earlier guided, to offer up a remembrance feast unto Yeshua, as He also had commanded. So in the same way, that Noah indeed was authorized to ordain a feast kept in his honor, in his remembrance. And that order was written on the tablets, heavenly tablets. In the same way, the Most High issued an order, and this is there in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 11. And this is the blue letter Bible here conveniently titles this section of the book the Lord's Supper. And he quotes here the other sort of references, book of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 26 to 29, Mark, chapter 14, 22 to 25, Luke, chapter 22, 14 to 23. But in those passages, there was no order given, do this in remembrance of me. But here in the book of 1 Corinthians, a book written by Paul, we have it twice stated that it was a command. So this is Paul here speaking as I started verse 23. For I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Yeshua, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. Verse 24. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. And here is the key part. This do in remembrance of me. So this was now a command. And we have to assume and be guided that this is written in the heavenly tablets as it was for Noah. And verse 25, after the same manner also he took the cup, and when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me. So this is a remembrance feast that is ordered through the Apostle Paul by Yeshua. For a long time I had resisted this because it was not stated in the original sources, because Paul wasn't there at the Lord's Supper. And if you go to Matthew chapter 26, there's no order given there to do this in remembrance of me, nor I believe in Mark, nor in Luke. But so this is coming from Paul. I should check that actually, but I'm not going to do that. But my point is this. I had been given the instruction because I go by spirit. So whether I liked it or I didn't like it, or believed it or didn't believe it, he's given me Urim and Thummim, and through Urim and Thummim, when I ask certain questions, I get definite answers. And long ago, he had given me the definite instruction through Urim and Thummim to perform this remembrance feast in honor of Yeshua on every first of the month. Sorry, and every new month. Let's use the term that is used there in Scripture. Those new months being not every month, but every new month of the new season. So it is the first month, the fourth month, the seventh month, and the 10th month. It's not every month. And so it is connected with not any sighting of any crescent moon. Because if you go by the crescent moon, you're not going to get the right days for the spirits of the seasons to come in and take over from the previous spirit. So for the spirit of summer to come, the spirit of spring has to end. So when the spirit of spring started on that New Year's Day, 6009, you had to count 92 days. Spread over 3 months. The first month of spring is 30 days. The second month of spring is always 31 days now. It wasn't so in Enoch's day. In Enoch's day, it would have been 30 days also. And then the third month of the season of spring, which is always 31 days, as it also was in the days of Enoch, And that 31st day is what is called an intercalary day. And it is that 31st day that is the day of the spring equinox. And the day following that is the day of the summer solstice. And the day following that is the first day of the season of summer. And this year that took place on this last Saturday, Sabbath day. Okay, and that evening is when the Most High told me, as I had been doing for the remembrance feast in honor of Yeshua, he told me to give up a remembrance feast also in honor of Noah, because that is an ordinance given forever to not only our people, because Noah was the father of Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So indeed, all mankind is supposed to be doing that new month feast of the first month, fourth month, seventh month, and 10th month, because that ordinance is written in the heavenly tablets, and that one, once that's written, that's not going away. And guess what? The Most High don't forget. If you forget, he will bring it back to your remembrance, if need be, as he now has brought it back to my remembrance. And he kind of made a point, which was not lost upon me, that the remembrance feast in honor of Yeshua, as testified by Paul, even though you might not want to take Paul's testimony as sort of gospel, and pardon the irony, I'll go by Spirit, and Spirit told me, yes, you must give that, treat that as an ordinance given by Yeshua, even though it is at the very best ambiguous in the sort of, well, let me go to Matthew just to sort of hammer home the point. Matthew 26. Here it is, as the Lord's Supper is instituted, is what the Blue Letter Bible tells us. And as they were eating, Yeshua took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Does he say, "Do this in remembrance of me"? No. And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink ye all of it," meaning all of you drink of it. Verse 28, "For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. And 29, which does not apply, "But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine," which is not so. So it is just verses 26 to 28. And at no point has he said here, "Do this in remembrance of me." That comes later with Paul. But anyway, I am guided that we must do this now as an ordinance, the same way that Noah gave us an ordinance to be kept forever, and that ordinance is written in the tablets in heaven. This was indeed an ordinance given to us by Yeshua. So that too is no doubt written in the tablets in heaven, and we are to keep it until further notice. Okay? So, and I had been doing it in any case. I mean, obviously Christianity has an issue, and I'm not going to get too much into it. If you're going to be taking communion, as they call it, there has to be a question, well, how often do you do it? Do you do it every day? Do you do it every week? Do you do it every first of the month? Do you do it whatever? What is the frequency? Well, the frequency I have been given is to do it on this same frequency, originally laid down by Noah as a remembrance feast forever that he ordained, which is every season, at the beginning of every season. So you could take that or leave it as you are guided, because we must all go according to our own conscience, isn't it? Okay, but in addition to this point, and this is the main what I wanted to bring to you today, which is why this video is entitled Noah's Remembrance Feast, I also wanted to make the side issue, which is a very important issue, because many of our people are still, misleading others of our people, first of all, into thinking that it is every month. No, sorry. First of all, misleading our people into thinking that the new months are somehow tied to the coming of the new moons. And so just like the Muslims, we look for the crescent moon, or they look for the crescent moon, which is also what the so-called Jews do. And I am to let you know that no, the Most High's Hebrew calendar is not at all predicated on the sighting of any crescent moon. If you go according to the sighting of the moon, in other words, you're going to have months of alternating between 29-day months and 30-day months. And so a lunar year would only amount to about 354 days. Not the 365 and a quarter days on average, that is the solar year. And if we're going according to Enoch, and we're going according to Noah and his new month feasts and ordinances, it is going to be not a 354-day lunar year, but a 365 and a quarter day on average solar year. Because if you go by the 13 weeks for the season of spring back in the day, now 92 days, not 91 days anymore. If you go by that, 4 by 91 is 364, which is 10 days more than any lunar year. Which is why if you go according to the so-called Jewish calendar, which is based upon sighting of the crescent moon to determine the new, what they call the new month days, but really are not new month days. Every so often, you will have to add a 13th month to a year, because you would come to the 12th month, which is only 354 days. But if you start a new year at that point, it would obviously be too early, because it would be you would still be in the winter, and spring wouldn't have sprung yet. And everybody kind of knows that can't be right. So they make an adjustment, add a 13th month, which they call Adar 2, so that on average it sort of balances out. But if you're doing that, then you are straight away contradicting you're contradicting Enoch, because he spoke about the 91 days or 13 weeks, season to season. And he would also be contradicting Noah, as stated there in Jubilees, which sort of presupposes that each season would be 13 weeks. Now that of course is changed, as I have let you to know, and as Enoch indeed had prophesied, to where it is no longer 364 days as it was in his day, but 365 and a quarter days on average, as he had let us to know in the book of the Slavonic Enoch, or the secrets of Enoch. Okay, so that is the second point I wanted to make in this short video, that we need, because the Most High doesn't change, he doesn't bend. You can't negotiate with the Most High. When he's given his order, the order is given. And if you're having some difficulty because something has changed, you gotta go back to him in prayer and get guidance. You can't just improvise by saying, okay, well, from now on we're going to look for the crescent moon, which was done by the worshippers of Diana. I was looking for that in the book of Acts. I forgot the actual reference in that regard. Oh, there was something else I wanted to bring to you. So let me go there now. Because there is this thing called the idea, as spoken of Habakkuk, that there would be a tarrying. So that when you got to the seventh millennium, which is nominally year 6001, yes, the seventh millennium is supposed to start, and various things on that calendar are supposed to happen, the end times calendar. But we were given, according to Habakkuk, I think it's the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, if I remember correctly. Bear with me a little bit. Okay. So when we had 364 days a year for the return of the spring equinox, we had a, well, let me just read from here. I'm trying to get to the point as to why it is there is this thing called a tarrying, as spoken of by the prophet Habakkuk. Let me give you the first the okay. I start at verse 2. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. Publish it, in other words. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Okay? At the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Well, what is the it there that he's talking about? And that is what here is given in the book The Coming of the Messiah, where I was guided to kind of make some sense of what this whole tarrying question was about. So let me go now to the preface of that book, The Coming of David Messiah. Right. Let me start here. Yes. Let me start here. Equally, by the way, I'm now given that at Revelation chapter 1, verse 7 and elsewhere, wherein it is stated that, quote, every eye shall see him, unquote, that too is meant spiritually in part, metaphorically in part, but not literally as to every eye shall see him. And I will skip reading the verse 1, Revelation 1, verse 7. Every eye shall see the manifestations in the clouds and in the skies of his coming, as judgment plagues are unleashed in the form of tempest and hail and snow, tornado, hurricane, cyclone, waterspout, etc. Not to mention other signs in the sky like blood moons, solar eclipses, and the like. In all these and other manifestations, they see him and his angels, his host, Because these are judgment plagues in large part, all shall wail. This, however, does not preclude his coming, as he came to his disciples after he had been resurrected and risen in the flesh. That though will come later, and not in a way that every eye shall see him. He will come in that sense as a man, after all, in the flesh. But his visitation will, in the first instance, be spiritual, and in the metaphorical sense, through the judgment plagues that he will unleash. That is what every eye shall see, though under Satan's order few will acknowledge that it is his presence that they behold, rather manifestations of impersonal phenomena linked to quote-unquote climate change and so on. So that is what was started, the End Times Agenda, on Sunday, March 24, 2019, which was the first day of the new year, year 6005, on the true Enochian calendar, as adjusted. In the spiritual, as just attested to at the sealed portion, chapter 21, verse 63. His first order of business then was to start the process of gathering his 144,000 elect upon Mount Zion. This reference to Mount Zion, by the way, must also be spiritual and metaphorical, as representing the gathering of the righteous remnant unto a new society and order, overturning the order established by the wicked one. His second order of business was then to unleash the judgment plagues. Okay, so I'm coming now to the question of the tarrying. But allow me to just, because this is written, let me just go with what is written. In this connection, I am also given that the 6 and 7 seals have now indeed also been loosed. Certainly the plagues of the book of Revelation have been let loose upon the world. This also implies that the sealing of the 144,000 elect is now complete, since the angels of strife were waiting for that event before commencing the plagues, now clearly let loose. Thus, although wrong as to what precisely was to happen on that date, Sunday, 24th March 2019, it seems now in hindsight, because I was expecting that Revelation 14:1 would be fulfilled on that date in the physical, where it says that and the Lamb stood upon Mount Zion with 144,000. I thought that would happen in the physical. So when it didn't happen, I had some sort of soul searching to do. Anyway, let me carry on. It seems now, and the result of that soul searching was eventually to find out that Revelation 14 verse 1 was indeed fulfilled on that day, but in the spiritual. And so now that started a process which is now unfolding in the physical. So let me carry on. So it seems now in hindsight that that day did indeed mark the beginning of the end-time events scheduled for the 7th millennium. That is, with a tarrying of exactly 4 years, because this started in year 6005, first day of the new year. Okay, so let me repeat that sentence. That is, with a tarrying of exactly 4 years, the 7th millennium, although nominally started on the first day of year 6001, by definition, right? Because once you go from, I think that's obvious, by definition, started rather on the first day of year 6005. For the purposes of the end time timetable of judgment and redemption. So was a 4-year tarrying. And how did that 4 years per se come about is now the question that I want to address. What was special about Sunday, March 24, 2019? As mentioned, it was the first day of the year 6005 on the revised Enochian calendar. But it was significant also in the following precise sense. The day previous marked an end of each of the following cycles. A daily cycle, obviously. A weekly cycle. The day previous was a seventh day, a Shabbat day. So the new year actually began at the head of a new week. It started on the first day of a new week. Item C, a monthly cycle. So the day previous marked a day of equinox. Therefore, the end of the 12th month on the Enochian calendar. So that's what defined the end of that year. Item D, a yearly cycle. So the spring equinox is also the end of the 12th month, and ipso facto the end of an Enochian year, whether revised or otherwise. Item E, a 4-year leap year cycle. So year 6004, which was the year prior to year 6005, obviously, is 4 divisible and therefore a 366-day leap year, although I think that the term leap year is misplaced in this context, but let us continue with it. On the revised Enochian calendar. Okay, so that's 5 cycles. And then there's actually a 6th cycle, which is a 60-year cycle for the return to the condition as existed just the day prior to year 1, day 1. In terms of relative position of sun and moon as they started together in the 4th portal in the eastern sky. This one gets a little bit technical because, and I won't go into that technicality. It is detailed in the book Yahweh's Enochian Calendar and the Second Coming. But there's a 60-year cycle that brings sun and moon back together to that sort of starting position in the 4th portal of those, in the first position of the 4th portal, of those 6 portals in the eastern sky and also with corresponding portals in the western sky. So sun and moon started essentially together. So that when on the day 1 of the calendar, which is when Adam was created, he was created that morning of that, that would have been that Shabbat day morning, actually. It would have been, not Shabbat day, the 6th day, Friday, that would be that Friday morning. When he was created, so he would have seen the first sunset that very day, which would have been year 1, day 1. He would have seen the sun set in the western sky, and he would have seen also the moon set, not quite the same time as the sun set, but a little bit afterwards. So he would have seen that first crescent moon. Okay, because the previous day would have been that, in effect, equinox day, that first equinox day, when he would have seen, if he had been alive to see it, he would have witnessed the setting of the sun in the western sky, but he would not have been able to view the moon, because it would have been what is called a new moon in the scientific sense, where the moon would not have been at all visible because completely occluded. So he wouldn't have seen the moon setting right after the sun. It would be the following day that he would then see that sliver of the crescent moon. You see? So there's a 60-year cycle to return to that condition which existed at the start, which would have been that fifth day of that first week, that week of creation, when sun and moon would have acquired the necessary sort of motion. They would have been created on the fourth day, but on the fifth day, they would have acquired requisite motion to where, sun and moon would have been together in that fourth portal, first station of the fourth portal, and so would have set in the western sky at about the same time. Okay, so that 60-year cycle is kind of interesting. But let me carry on here with the text. The year then following, New Year, year 6005, thus marked a reset of all of these cycles listed. Year 6005 is also the first year after the nominal start of the seventh millennium, which is year 6001, obviously, when all the foregoing cycles start afresh. If it was a 364-day year, all would have started afresh already in year 6001. But because it's now a 365.25 day cycle, for a year, on average, there is a sort of a delay as to when, after the nominal start of that new millennium, when all these foregoing cycles, start afresh. What is that, 14? Well, with the exception of the day of week for the 60-year cycle. So the day of week, because year one, day one would have been that Friday in effect, but now for year 6005, day one is not a Friday. What am I saying? It's not, well, the end of the cycle is not a Friday, rather a Saturday, so that the new year starts on that Sunday, our first day of the week. Okay, so that is the difference between year 6005 and year 1. Well, let me carry on. Second sentence of that paragraph here at the top of the page. It does also mark the conclusion of the millennial tarrying, and the tarrying is precisely for all these cycles to start afresh, and therefore correspondingly the tarrying adjusted start of the new millennium. What does footnote 15 say? So we can define the tarrying as referred to by Habakkuk at verse 3 of chapter 2. The tarrying is that least number of years necessary for a return to a year 1 state, except for the precise day of week on which the new year starts, after the nominal start of the new millennium in year 6001. So for the seventh millennium, the tarrying as so defined is exactly 4 years. It is interesting that for the eighth millennium, a similar calculation would give a tarrying of 12 years for the events then scheduled, should Yahweh so will. And that is assuming that he doesn't change a 365.25 day on average year. If that changes, then of course the tarrying would also change accordingly. But carrying on with that paragraph at the top, after footnote 15. So let's carry on with the following sentence, which says, this also marks, not incidentally, one of the conditions of the prophecy of the Gautama Buddha pertaining to the coming of the future Buddha. Because in that prophecy, there was a reference to a tripartite year as being one of these cycles. So the future Buddha would come after a cycle in which there would have been a tripartite year, or after a tripartite year. A tripartite year being a 366-day year. So year 6004 was a 366-day year, and therefore definitionally a tripartite year. Why? Because 366 is divisible into 3 parts, each of 122 days. Okay. So, and carrying on, this was made known to me only later, and I was given to write volume 3, which is the Yahweh's Enochian calendar book. But next paragraph, thus, year 6005 could be deemed the millennial year of Grand Reset, to coin a term. For the present 7th millennium, it comes exactly 4 years after its nominal start, year 6005, Gregorian 2019, versus year 6001, the nominal start of the 7th millennium, which was Gregorian 2015. So this is how is determined the number of years of tarrying that is necessary. So from day 1, year 6005 is when then we had the beginning of the events of the end times. And this, well, one of the events, let me look at it here. Revelation chapter 14, verse 1, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. Okay, so this is the beginning. And I said I thought that would be a physical event, but actually it's a spiritual event. Yes, so this was so even the idea of a Mount Zion is not necessarily an actual physical mountain. It's more an idea in the spiritual. But let me read the sealed portion, chapter 21, verse 63. And as I was alone, so shall he be. Nevertheless, after these things shall be revealed unto the children of men, then shall he find those of the elect, the 144,000, who shall help him to bring this work unto all the children of men. And the elect shall begin to gather from the 4 corners of the earth. But this gathering shall not be done in haste, nor shall it be a physical gathering, but it shall be a spiritual gathering that is done in wisdom and according to the guidance of the Holy Ghost. So the Revelation 14:1 should always have been interpreted by me, which it was not, as an event. Yes, it started year 6005, day 1, which was Sunday, March 24, 2019, but it was done in the spiritual. And so now the unfolding of this gathering in the physical of this 144,000 and all of the workings of the Spirit that has to be done and performed in each one of those, and the explosion of understanding, of awakening, of things that were hid now coming to light. All of these things, it's a process. And here we are in year 6009, 4 years after a 4-year tarrying, and to all appearances, it's not quite done yet. You understand? But it is working itself out in the physical. Okay, so I think this is important to bear in mind as we consider the revised Enochian calendar, and consider also those who are holding firm, but mistakenly in my opinion, to this idea of either a lunar solar calendar of the Jewish sort, in which sighting of the crescent moon is the basis for determining the new month days, or holding to this idea of a luni solar calendar, where not only are they relying on the sighting of the crescent moon to determine the new months, but also to determine the Shabbat days. So the Shabbat days become a movable feast from month to month in terms of the day of the week on which it falls. So this is highly misguided, and I have to say it, and I'm given the authority to say it, that if as given to us by Enoch, I think it was Enoch chapter 82 there, where in his day it was a 91-day season, given for each season, and given to us in the book of Jubilees, where Noah gave his ordinance of remembrance to be kept not every month per se, but every new month of each new season. So the first month of the year, the fourth month of the year, summer, the seventh month of the year, autumn, and the 10th month of the year, winter, along obviously with the first month of the year, spring. Only at the head of those seasons are we to do for the reasons that Noah gave, connected with happenings during that great big flood. Why it is we must keep those new month feasts of the new seasons, and not new month feasts of every month that comes along, and certainly not new month feasts as based upon or determined by the sighting of the crescent moon. That is a paganism. Complete and utter paganism. Because the solar calendar as given to us by Enoch does not hinge on any sighting of the crescent moon. As a matter of fact, he very clearly warns against doing that. It's there in the book of Jubilees somewhere. Yes, I think this is the best. Jubilees chapter 6, verses 36 to 38. And do read the, well, let me actually go up to Jubilees 6:33. So Jubilees chapter 6 verse 33, but if they do neglect and do not observe them according to his commandment, then they will disturb all their seasons, and the years will be dislodged from this order, and they will neglect their ordinances, which is what happened. And all the children of Israel will forget and will not find the path of the years, and will forget the new months and seasons and Shabbats, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years, which is what has happened. Thus we see that unrighteousness in itself, neglecting the feasts certainly included, will cause the years to be dislodged. And in addition, Jubilee 6 to verses 36 to 38, for there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order. So if they're using a lunar cycle for the year, this is where you now have to throw in an Adar 2 after 12 months, so you have a 13-month year, to try to get it in alignment once again with the seasons. Okay, so in verse 37, for this reason the years will come upon them when they will disturb the order and make an abominable day, the day of testimony. Okay, so they will be observing a new month day on the wrong day, and an unclean day, a feast day. They'll be keeping new month feasts on the wrong day. And they will confound all the days, the Kodesh, with the unclean, and the unclean with the Kodesh. For they will go wrong as to the months and Shabbats and feasts and jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to you, that you may testify to them. For after your death your children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And this has had now to be revised to 365 and a quarter, as Enoch himself prophesied, but for the reasons that it was adjusted or disturbed because of our unrighteousness in the first place. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the new months and seasons and Shabbats and festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. In other words, it's all, as we would say in Trinidad, all old mass. But the Most High, it does not adjust His law to accommodate our ignorance. What He does is to raise up servants to go and tell the people what is the correct thing to do. And this is my lot here to do this. And this is why He had me to write the book, Yahweh's Enochian Calendar and the Second Coming. I wish perhaps it could have been more clearly written, I don't know. But the sort of basic outline of Enoch's calendar remains intact. It remains that the Hebrew year, is set on 4 pillars, namely the 4 seasons of the year. And each season is heralded empirically by, in the case of spring and autumn, by a day of equinox. And in the case of summer and winter, by a day of solstice. So summer solstice was last Friday, the day of preparation for this Shabbat, but that's by coincidence. And so the first day of summer was last Saturday, which was actually also a Shabbat day. Okay? So Saturday was that new month day of the season of summer, of the fourth month. And the Most High reminded me, because I also was not observing it, to, at the same time, I was giving a feast of remembrance to Yeshua, to perform also a feast of remembrance in honor of our great patriarch Noah, in accordance with the law that is given there in the book of Jubilees, chapter 6. I forget the verses now. And that ordinance is there written in the holy tablets. And that order was to be observed forever. So this is to exhort you to come back to that remembrance feast of our forefather Noah, and also to suggest to you that to obey as well the feast, the remembrance feast for our Lord Yeshua, as testified by the Apostle Paul, and to suggest, although this is not necessary, that what is called communion feast by the Christians could perhaps also be observed on that same cycle of a new month feast, namely for the first month, the fourth month, the seventh month, and the 10th month. And in any case, in order to do that, we must return to the proper Enochian calendar. If we go by the Gregorian calendar, we will not get it right. And if we go by the calendar as indeed suggested to us, the lunar solar calendar based on the sighting of the crescent moon, if we do it that way, we're going to get it wrong. We're going to get the Kodesh mixed up with the unclean. Okay? So with that, I give all praise, I give all glory, I give all exaltation unto the Most High God, Yahweh. And to all of you still listening, I say, Shalom.